Dr. Rafey from Pakistan, and we'd be sharing. I'd be sharing two particular EPCF projects, and with Chinese funding, China Exim Bank funding. One was the Orange Line Metro project in Lahore. This was an LRT, light rail transit metro bus project, financed by the Chinese, and the other was the Sakhar Multan motorway project. That's a six-lane highway project, which was done under the EPCF by the Chinese contractors. Both of them had startling resemblances, but both of them also had differences. So if we talk about the Sakhar Multan motorway, it was an EPCF contract for 306 kilometers, and it was 100% funded by the China Exim Bank. And now it has been completed, and the defect liability period is also over. It is not being operated and maintained by the same contractor. It is being maintained by the National Highway Authority of Pakistan. And I think there are many things that are we have to learn about EPCF contracts because they have their pros and cons. We've had trouble. The good thing about them is that, frankly, this model is mostly being followed by Chinese contractors and Chinese loans and banks. We have much to learn from the Chinese. They are light years ahead of us when it comes to technology and advancement. But the problem that we've faced in Pakistan, at least, is that uh, since the return of the loan on the payback of the equity, it's not based on a revenue sharing model. It's a total annuity based model where they have the government of Pakistan or the National Highway Authority has to return a fixed amount every year to the Chinese bank, to the China Exim Bank. We have had a big problem with the ridership data because I think this is where us as the local governments in developing countries we lack a lot. Because the ridership data, whatever was projected through the feasibility, it wasn't counter verified by maybe a consultant in a top leading consultant from the developing world. Because all the these softwares that model the ridership, they are based on Western practices, and whereas they return good results for in the Western developed nations, they don't produce good results in the developing countries. The ridership turned out to be much lower than it was projected in the feasibility. And therefore, the revenue through the toll collection, it is not up to the mark, which is leading to increased burden on the government while paying back these loans. Excuse me for a second. Yeah. So this happened with the motorway project, and it was a Chinese consultant, a Chinese contractor, and Chinese bank. Then, as a mitigation, as a mitigatory step, in the Orange Metro Line project, we before that happened, we made a China Pakistan Engineering Forum called CPEF, and we made an agreement with the Chinese top tier construction companies that you have to at least take 30% or 40% Pakistani companies and consultants on board. So that at least created some livelihood over here. But we faced the same problems with the ridership data. That all for the Orange Line Metro project, all the ridership data that was projected, it turned out to be much lower. That feasibility was not verified by any local consultant, by the local metro authority, or by the local the local somebody from a developing country, because even though the ridership data was modeled on the Transcat or the Transam software, but like I said, it is good for developed countries, but for the local countries, it has implications. And since the EPCF contractor, uh, he's not dependent on the performance of that project or the revenue that is being collected from that project to pay to earn money. He is reluctant to take any step. Like, for example, for the Orange Line project, one of the major reasons that was discovered in our study was that people were preferring other forms of local transportation like chingchis, rickshaws, motorbikes, some other ride-sharing formulas. So, there was no intervention from the government side to encourage people from riding the metro. And since the EPCF contractor, his income was not based on the ridership, on the revenue model, that is why the government is once again under extreme stress to pay it back. So I think while EPCF has its lots of benefits, but the problem I think lies with the local governments in the developing countries where they're not doing their own due diligence in assessing that because these are not PPP projects, these are not public-private partnership models. Since you're not revenue partners, you're not relying on the performance of the project to pay back. It is an increased load and increased burden on the government that the due diligence for the ridership data, for the financial model, for the performance of the project is not done at par. And I think, like I mentioned before, also that the whereas these softwares, these techniques for assessment of ridership is very successful in the Western countries, in the developed nations, they frankly do not give back the same results. You can even like, do your own research on ridership issues in the developing countries. We have had a lot of problem in Pakistan. We have done 6 metro projects up till now, except the 2 in Karachi. The 4 other projects, the ridership is not as it was projected. And similarly, in Bangladesh, in India, even I think in Malaysia, they've had problem with the ridership data. So if you're going for an EPCF project on which the payback is not based on the revenue sharing, it is simply an annuity-based return, it can have a problem. So all in all, I think EPCF projects, just to conclude, EPCF projects, while they're good, whereas the risk of the design construction is parked on the EPCF contractor, but the problem is being faced where the return on equity or the return of the loan is not based on the performance of the project, on the revenue being incurred, to being collected from the project. That has burdenized several governments in the developing countries.